What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Supercharged with Dr. V. This week we are talking about child development. There's so much more to parenting than just putting a roof over your kid's head or putting food on the table. However, we shouldn't undermine just how crucial and difficult that can be for some people. But going beyond the basics, being a good parent means to give our children, to the best of our ability, the right tools and environment for them to grow in. And one tool out of the many tools that can help our children grow is self-control. So let's take a look at a very famous research study to help us understand self-control. And as always, even if you don't have children, I urge you to continue watching because this principle can apply to anyone at any age. In 1990, the late psychologist Walter Mischel performed one of the most famous research studies ever conducted, the Marshmallow Test. And it was a very simple test. Preschoolers were told to sit in a room and were given one marshmallow. And they were told that if they could hold off on eating that marshmallow until the experimenter returned, then they could get 2 marshmallows and eat 2 marshmallows. This was a test of a psychological phenomenon known as delayed gratification. Delayed gratification is when you can resist the urge or the temptation for a small reward now for a bigger reward later. As one might expect, some kids caved in and ate that marshmallow, while others resisted the temptation and earned themselves 2 marshmallows. Now that wasn't the focus of the experiment. The focus was what happened years later. Years later, the psychologists followed these same kids when they became adolescents, and they saw that the kids who resisted the temptation and earned the second marshmallow scored better on their SATs, had lower BMIs or body mass indexes, and had fewer behavioral problems. I mean, how cool is that? For years, this study was thought to highlight the importance of delayed gratification. The kids who could delay gratification ended up being higher achieving in the future. But it doesn't stop here. Many people pointed out flaws in this study. One being the small sample size, where they only used 90 kids. And number 2, those kids were taken from areas around Stanford University, so their parents were likely very wealthy and highly educated. So scientists later on tried to replicate this study and account for those missing variables. More recent studies have shown that when you control for other factors, such as a child's cognitive abilities, the home environment, and the family background, the relationship between delayed gratification and achievement is greatly reduced. Social and economic background plays a huge role. I mean, think about it. If you grow up in a poor household, you're used to scarcity. One day you may have food and another day you may not. So they will take that marshmallow while they can. And on the other hand, children from wealthier households know from experience that their parents and other adults have financial stability and access to resources. So even if they don't wait for that second marshmallow, they know that after the experiment's over, their parents can still drive them and get them some ice cream. So, although these more recent studies don't contradict what Walter Mischel originally studied, they do say that the effect can be skewed and may not be as great as we thought. However, Walter Mischel heard this criticism and responded to it in his book, The Marshmallow Test. He says that what he's most interested about the study is not the test's ability to predict future achievement. It's the ability for children and adults to be able to regulate their emotions and impulses. In other words, self-control. And he said this because the children who waited for that second marshmallow found a way to distract themselves. They substituted their urge to eat the marshmallow into another activity, such as singing a song or turning their toes into piano keys, or even picking their noses and their ears. So in that sense, he agreed with these newer research studies that we shouldn't focus on teaching our kids delayed gratification. We should focus on teaching them how to exert control over their inner selves. These methods of self-control are the secret sauce. How do we control our emotions, what comes out of our mouth, our behavior, our thoughts? This self-control can be brought out in many different ways. One of them is self-reflection. Reflect about what you really want in life and become in tune with your own thoughts and emotions. Another way is substituting bad habits for good or better habits. For example, if you want to stop smoking Every time you have an urge to smoke a cigarette, substitute it with a coffee break. And there's so many other ways to exert self-control, such as practicing mindfulness, breathing exercises, concentration, prayer, yoga, and so much more. Now, these activities can not only help children, they can help adults exert control over our inner lives and be happier. So at the end of multiple studies looking at the Marshmallow Test, we can take two big lessons out of it. One, socioeconomic status matters. It's clear that on average, the richer and more educated that your family is, the higher you achieve. And although this is an important lesson, we all can't control our socioeconomic status. So that brings us to lesson number 2. A child's ability to self-control can have an impact in determining their future level of achievement. So I urge you to teach your children how to exert control over their inner lives so that they can achieve their dreams. And if you're not a kid anymore, I encourage for you to do the same. Practice it yourself so that you too can become happier. I'm confident that if we all do this, we can make this world a better place for everyone to live in.